Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and so I'm going to be doing a Floowandereeze deck profile. So I'm really excited to see you guys, because this deck is one of the craziest decks ever printed in Yu-Gi-Oh! It can totally lock down your opponent, and it's going to be an insanely powerful deck this format. I love the way this deck plays. It's really insane the way it plays, basically just using the main deck to be able to tribute summon out really powerful monsters to your side of the field, and totally overwhelm your opponent with all sorts of powerful effects. So, without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name in the description of any single video, getting a signed card to the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Impin. Impin is one of the craziest cards in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, because basically it's a one-sided Baguska. I love the way this card actually works, because if this card is tribute summoned, you can add a Floowandereeze spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Then immediately after this card effect resolves, you can normal summon any monster from your hand at all. And that's a really good effect just to be able to normal summon something, and the majority of your Floowandereeze monsters actually give you that effect to be able to normal summon an additional time. It also has the ability that when this tribute summon card is in the monster zone, your opponent cannot activate the effects of special summon monsters they control in attack position, which is basically having a one-sided 2700 attack point Baguska, which is a really awesome effect. And then once per battle, during damage calculation, if this card battles an opponent's monster, quick effect, you can banish a card from your hand, and that opponent's monster's current attack and defense become halved until the end of this turn. That is a really good effect on a boss monster to basically summon this card to your side of the field and totally lock down your opponent, while also making them have to summon a monster that has 5,400 or better to be able to get through this, which is a really good effect. We then play a single copy of Ryza the Mega Monarch. Ryza the Mega Monarch is a really good card in here as well, because this card has the ability that you can tribute summon this card by tributing a tribute summoned monster. And if this card is tribute summoned, then you get to target a card on the field and 1 card in either player's graveyard. And also, if this card was tribute summoned by tributing a wind monster, you can target an additional card on the field and place the first target on the top of the deck in any order. And also, after this card is return the additional card to the hand as well, which is a great effect just to give you a bounce from the field, and be able to get a card back from the graveyard is a great effect. We then play a single copy of the Mist Valley Apex Avian. Apex Avian is basically a walking negate, which is a really good effect, especially in a Wing Beast deck like this. You only ever want to play around 4 normal summons in this deck from my experience, and I really think that playing these 4 is the lineup. I really want to make room for Snowl, but Snowl just to me feels like a win more card, so I'm not currently playing it. You can change out the Apex Avian for one if you do want to go that route though. We then play the single best card in the entire deck, which is 3 copies of Rabina. Rabina is insane. I love this card. It is one of the best cards in the entire deck, and if you draw into this card, the entire combo is set. This card is a 1-card combo to get a Impin on your side of the field and to get a barrier statue, so this card is absolutely insane. That if this face-up card would leave the field, all of your level 1s have this ability. That if this card would leave the field, you banish it instead, and you can only use each of following effects of this card once per turn, and you cannot special summon it during the turn you activate this effect. That if this card is normal summon, you get an effect, which Rabina's effect is that you get to add a level 4 or lower Wing Beast monster from your deck to your hand, and then all of your other level 1s share the ability that then, immediately after this card resolves, then you get to normal summon an additional Wing Beast monster. And if a Wing Beast monster is normal summoned to your field while this card is banished, you can add it back to your hand. All of your low level ones share that ability, but this one's unique ability is that you can add a level 4 lower Wing Beast from your deck to your hand. We then play 3 copies of Eaglin. Eaglin has the ability that when this card is normal summoned, you can add a level 7 or higher, but it copies all of the other effects from your Rabina. We play 2 copies of Stria. Stria is really good because Stria can make your Dimensional Shifter live, because it has the ability, if it's normal summon, you can target 1 card on either player's graveyard and banish it, which is a great effect just to be able to get additional cards out of the graveyard. It can be cards that your opponent has, it can be something that you want to get out of your graveyard. It kind of depends on what the situation is. We then play a single copy of Toucan. Toucan is a 1-up to me. I don't feel like you need any more than one of this card, because if it's normal summon, you can target one of your banished Floowandereeze cards and add it back to your hand, but usually all of your Floowandereeze can actually get themselves back anyways, but it's still really nice to play this card as a 1-up for the name. We then play a single copy of the Barrier Statue. Barrier Statue plus Impin equals GG for the opponent. That's pretty much the entire game, because once you summon out your copy of Barrier Statue, they can only special summon wind monsters, and then if you summon an Impin, every monster that they have in attack position that's special summon is got its effects negated. So it's a really amazing board, especially when you combo with like Book of Moon to flip their one normal summon face down. We then play for the hand traps. We're playing 3 copies of Dimensional Shifter. This card is absolutely insane. If a deck is ever better than this deck, it is no longer better than this deck when you drop Dimensional Shifter, because when you drop the Dimensional Shifter, everything gets banished. When you're playing against something like Drytron or playing against like Tri-Brigade and you drop D-Shifter on the first turn, it's pretty much a turn 1 loss for them, because they're not going to be able to play their first turn at all, because they're not going to send cards to the banish pile because they function out of the graveyard. So this card is very important as a 3-of in this deck, and I highly recommend 3 copies of D-Shifter. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. I like 3 copies of Ash Blossom because if I don't draw into the D-Shifter, I can always use Ash Blossom to stop my opponent's plays and from them touching the deck and getting searches, so then I can lock them down with a copy of Impin plus Storm Barrier Statue, which is a really good combo. So that's it for the monsters. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Terraforming because it gets us to the Majestic map, which is the Magnificent map, which is a great card to be able to get to, which basically gives us Rubina, which is an absolute insane thing. Play a single copy of Goldsark. Goldsark is a must-have 1-of in this deck because you can use Goldsark to banish any of your monsters from your deck and then be able to add them back when you normal summon any of your Floowandereeze, which is a really insane effect. This card is basically Rhoda, which is just insane. We then play a single copy of Called by the Grave because it stops hand traps. And then we play a single copy of Floowandereeze and the Unexpected Winds. Unexpected Winds is really good because it actually lets you tribute your opponent's monsters, because you can conduct a tribute summon that requires 2 tributes by sending a monster you control and a card your opponent controls to the graveyard instead of you tributing both the monsters. And if it is still needed as a tribute summon, or it's still meant as a tribute summon, which is a really cool thing, because your monsters that say, hey, you have to tribute summon, basically are just tributing your opponent's monster and one of yours, which is really cool. It also has the ability that during the main phase, you can reveal up to 2 Winged Beast monsters in your hand, place them on the bottom of your deck in any order, and then draw 2 cards. So if you have multiple copies of Rubina, multiple copies of Eaglin, multiple copies of Stria, you can just put them back in the deck to be able to draw 2 more to get you more plays, but I really only feel like you need 1 of this card. We then play 3 copies of the Magnificent map. Magnificent map is so good because it's the searcher of the deck that you can reveal any of your level 1 Floowandereeze, and then once you actually reveal them, you banish a Floowandereeze card from your deck with a different name from the one in your hand, and then you immediately normal summon out the one that you revealed, which is really good because it doesn't count as your first normal summon of the turn, so the deck doesn't auto lose if you get your normal summon negated. So it's a really cool thing with this card to be able to grab any of them that you want, because then when you normal summon, you then can grab the one that's banished back to your hand, which is a great effect. It also doesn't even end there. It has a really neat effect that if your opponent normal summons a monster, you can immediately, as card resolves, normal summon a Floowandereeze monster from your hand, which is a great effect just to be able to give us additional monsters on the field. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. Pot of Extravagance is really good in this deck because the Pot of Extravagance basically lets us draw 2. I like Prosperities, but I really like Extravagance better because it gives us a +1 where Prosperities just lets us dig. And this deck is already consistent enough, in my opinion, that you don't really need Prosperities. I like 3 copies of Extravagance and call it a day because I've already got a search here, I've got searches here, and I had the copy of Extravagance, and then I have Duality as well. I already have plenty of searches with my Floowandereeze normal summons, and it totally just doesn't matter to me to actually be able to look at 6. I like to be able to just draw 2 and get a +1 off the Extravagance, and plus I don't really care about the extra deck all that much because I function off of summoning out Impin to my side of the field. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Duality because it lets you look at the top 3 of your deck and then add 1 to your hand, but you can't special summon for the rest of the turn. This card is essentially like an Upstart Goblin for the deck, but you get to look at one of the 3, or you get to look at the top 3, which is really insane because you don't special special summon in this deck at all. You just normal summon. So this card is basically free, like, real estate. This card is so good in this deck because this is going to let you draw 2, and then if you have this in your hand, you're going to get to look at the top 3 and be able to add 1 from deck to hand. So you're basically getting to the 5 cards anyways that you were going to look at with Prosperities. We then play 3 copies of Book of Moon. Book of Moon is absolutely insane in this deck as a 3-of. I highly recommend 3 Book of Moon. Book of Moon is a really good card because what Book of Moon does for the deck is when your opponent normal summons while you have Barrier Statue, you can flip that monster face down when you basically have that 1 normal summon that they can attack through with. So I play the Book of Moon in here at 3 because it does stop the opponent from attacking through the Barrier Statue, which is a really great effect. So that's it for the spells. Let's get into the traps, because we actually play 4 traps. So for the traps, we're playing one of the craziest cards in the deck as well that you're always going to search off your copy of Impin, which is a single copy of Dreaming Town. Dreaming Town is so good because during the main phase, you can immediately, as card resolves, normal summon a level 4 Wing Beast monster. Great effect. Basically what you do is you normal summon Rabina, grab Eaglin, normal summon Eaglin, search Impin, normal summon the Impin, grab Eaglin and Rabina back to hand, search this, set it, and then when you pass to the opponent, you activate this to normal summon Rabina, and then once you normal summon the Rabina, you're going to grab Stormwinds from deck to hand, and then or the Barrier Statue, and then normal summon it out to your side of the field, so you have Impin and Stormwinds locking your opponent down, which is a great effect. Now that doesn't only just give you a normal summon, it actually is kind of like a Book of Eclipse, because if you tribute summon a level 7 or higher monster while this card is in your grave, you can manage this card to change all monsters your opponent controls to face down defense position. That's a really good effect just to be able to basically completely lock down your opponent's field and put everything in face down defense. We then play 3 copies of Dogmatic Punishment. This is kind of like Icarus Attack in the deck, because if you send from your extra deck to the graveyard a copy of Elder Entity Nist, which is the only time you really touch the extra deck is with this, you're basically going to get 2 pops, but you don't have to tribute a Winged Beast, where Icarus Attack would make you tribute a Winged Beast, but this actually just lets you send one from the extra deck to the graveyard to be able to pop a card your opponent controls. You can also send Omega to get cards out of the graveyard to make your D-Shifter live again, which is really cool. So that's it for the main deck. Let's get into the extra deck. Now I will say about the extra deck is totally subject to change. You can change anything that you want in this extra deck. If you're trying to go for a budget meta build, you don't have to play everything that I'm playing. You can change some of the cards out, but this is kind of like the general rule of thumb of what the cards I found that actually are the most useful for this deck. You can bump any of them to 3, you can bump them down to 1, anything that you want. What you find in this extra deck is totally like a toolbox to go into, because you really don't touch it all that much, except for Extravagance, and for your copies of your Dogmatic Punishment. So we're going to be playing 2 copies of Assembled Nightingale because it helps us go for Zeus, 2 copies of Downer Magician because it gives Zeus an additional material, and 2 copies of Zeus. This is here just in case you want to go Zeus and board wipe. It does come up every so often. It's very rare. In the time that I played the deck, I haven't gone into it, but it's kind of just there in case I needed to. I just don't need the extra deck for this. For the copies of the punishment targets, you're playing 1 copy of Wind Pegasus because it can shuffle something, 1 copy of Omega because it can shuffle something from the graveyard back, which is really cool to be able to like recycle cards like your copies of Called by the Grave and Book of Moons and stuff like that. You can actually use this to shuffle them out of the graveyard and basically get yourself a free graveyard, which is really nice for D-Shifter. We play 3 copies of Elder Entity Nist. Elder Entity Nist is a must of 3 of in here if you're going to play Punishment. Punishment is a tech card. You don't have to play it, but what this card does is basically if it's sent to the graveyard, you get to target a card on the field and destroy it, basically turning Dogmatic Punishment into an Icarus Attack, which is really cool because you get to target a monster with 2,500 or less attack, pop it, and then use this to pop any card on the field, which is really good. I then play 2 copies of Ominous Omen because this card actually comes in kind of handy because you can use it with your copy of Punishment to get rid of something that has 3,000 or more, and it also has the ability that you can also use the effect to be able to add Wing Beast cards back to your hand, because if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add a Beast Warrior or Wing Beast monster from your deck to your hand whose level is less than or equal to the number of banished Beast Warrior or Wing Beast. So you have any of your Floowandereeze monsters banished or your Floowandereeze banished, you can actually grab a level 1 off this card when you send it for your copy of Punishment. We then played 2 copies of Barren Blossom. Barren Blossom is kind of here just in case you want to summon her to your side of the field, and she comes in handy every so often, but this is basically the lineup that I have. I never really summon any of this. The only ones I ever summon is the Leerlusk, the Downer Magician, and the Zeus every so often, but basically everything else is basically a Dogmatic a punishment target, which is pretty much it. So that's it for the deck, guys. It's a really fun deck to play around with. I love this deck. It is one of the most budget meta decks I have ever seen in my life. I definitely think that this deck could become tier 0 very quickly, depending on what they do on the list. I will have test hands for this deck coming out very soon to teach you exactly how to play this deck, so be on the lookout for those test hands, because this deck absolutely is one of the most consistent decks I've ever played. It's really amazing the way that it plays. This is a deck I would carry to literally any event and play with it and probably take first place, especially with this list. It's super fun, and it's relatively budget for a meta deck. Like with Sword Soul running around being over like $1,000 deck, and then this being like $100 and can take Sword Soul on toe to toe is just hilarious. So anyways, guys, those DarkArmed Duels. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of Notification Squad. Definitely be on the lookout for test hands of this deck coming very, very soon to the channel, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.